Hey guys, this is Dory, and as promised for my DeviantArt watchers and people who happen to look at my Skyrim speed painting, I am uploading a step-by-step process. There is a version of this with just music and me doodling away. This one is me explaining my process, so if you don't want to listen to me talk, go click on this one. The first thing I did was lay down a very loose wash of like 3 or 4 base colors for the mountain range. As you can see, originally I had this really elaborate sketch of like a dragon and my character's husband, my character's dog, my character's horse, and in the end I ended up just going with like something a lot more simple. I'll probably, do the dragon later when I have a couple days to actually sit down and do it. I have the sketch saved, thank goodness. This whole thing, my computer crashed and overheated and then no longer had the sketch or like the final product. Anyway, onto the video. I laid down watches for the background and I went right into the sky. That's usually the first thing I do so I can get it out of the way, because based on the color palettes in my sky is usually how I determine what color palettes I'm going to put in the rest of my painting, because if the sky, like it is in my video reference, is like a pinky orangey kind of morning color, because apparently I was climbing the mountain in the morning. I want to make sure that I keep that same color consistency throughout. I use a very dramatic brush. I'm not really sure what to call it. Hard brush, very angular. And then I go in afterwards with a big fuzzy brush. Right there I used, there's a new tool in the CS5 that's like a color mixer, where you can like pick the brush and then go into the color mixer, and it'll mix the colors that are on that layer together. Kind of like Corel Painter has Blender, which is kind of like that. And I used it, but then I ended up saying, nah, I like it the old-fashioned Photoshop way, before we had blenders. That I put like on an overlay and changed the color until I got one I liked, and then merged it with the bottom layer so I could just color pick. The shortcut for color picking in Photoshop is just to hold down Alt when you're on the brush, and it'll bring up the little thing where you can pick the color, the eyedropper. For this I lay down where I basically want my snow, not a lot of detail. I don't go into the detail until after I have pretty much the whole color palette laid down. Even in a speed painting, I mean, if I wanted to stop this right now, I could have added a few more lines, cropped it, and been done. My idea with the speed painting is to make sure that it looks done no matter what point I'm at. That way, if I don't have time, unlike I used to have like 3 or 4 days to work on stuff, now I have 3 or 4 hours of free time to work on stuff. Free time just doesn't come around anymore. I have a lot of commissions I need to do, and I'm a little behind on them, and I promised I would get to them as soon as school is out. So I probably won't even have any free time for like the first week, so I only get a week of drawing to try to add some nice things to my portfolio. But, speed paintings are good because it keeps you gestural and it keeps you very loose. For the sky, I stayed pretty much fuzzy, warm colors, like for the clouds. I don't get too stark on the clouds in speed paintings because my lines in my actual mountains are so, liney. They're very rough. So I wanted my sky to be very soft. Otherwise, it would have felt like there was too much information, and it would have just made everybody's brains go, Yeah, I was looking at this guy. I think his name is Balkins something. He had a very pretty mountain that inspired me to do this, but his is much more finished, and mine sucks. Well, it's not finished. I could probably go back and make it a finished painting if I wanted, but like I said, don't have time. So I like speed painting. I used to hate it because I couldn't get into it. And I found that downloading and making my own brushes that are they're not round, and round to me, the perfection of a circle is what ruins speed paintings. It's just, I can't do a speed painting with a round brush because I get too worked up on it being perfect. So as soon as I started using a brush that wasn't round, all of a sudden my speed paintings got like 10 million times better. Don't ask me why. And I think it's also because I just one day decided I'm going to be good at doing this now, and I was. Um, Here I'm adding the values for uh, the trees. Like I added some rock values within the trees to break up the green so it wasn't all green down there. Since it's implied forest, it doesn't have to do every single tree. I think this was at the point where I decided to nix the whole dragon idea and mesh the sky since I didn't have the dragon anymore, so that way you're focusing more on the mountain range. It changed the entire composition, so I got kind of worked up on it at the end because I couldn't figure out how to make the foreground work, but I'll get to that. Right now I'm adding darker values because I skipped up to the next dark value, and I'm adding it in to tell where I would put, oh, I'm sorry, I'm tired. Where I would put the crevices in the mountain. I use snow a lot to cover up the fact that I suck at drawing mountains. I added shadow on the snow about halfway through this. And an important thing to note that is probably not important at all is right there, I fill in green before I even start painting the trees. That way, even if I don't paint the trees all the way, there's still green behind them so they don't look weird. I just want to say that I love the flat angular brush because it keeps me from trying to draw straight lines all the time, because it makes you have to think about it in a gestural fashion, because otherwise you're just going to be driving yourself crazy because it's impossible to draw a straight line because it's already tilted. I mean, the brush isn't perfect in of itself, so you can't make any perfect lines with it. So you're just like, okay, I need color here, I need color here. And I used to really admire people who could do this. And I still do. I love looking at speed paintings and make my speed paintings look gay. I'm like, what, they did that in 40 minutes? No way. It looks like it took at least 3 hours. But this one altogether took 2.5 hours. 2 hours and 21 minutes. Clocked in on the recorder. And I did spend some time just sitting there thinking about it towards the end because I was having some hard. It probably wouldn't have taken so long if I'd worked out my composition all the way through in the beginning. But since it was a speed painting, I wasn't even sure I was going to finish it. So I don't have time. As soon as I finish recording this, I'm going to go do homework. Yay! Here I'm adding some snow to the trees, which is just some implied snow, just line, 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 line. More implied snow. Here I add some mist to the mountains to break up the hard edges of the mountains to make them look more like majestic, I suppose. Because in the early mornings when you're looking out over Skyrim, which sounds silly because Skyrim's a mythical place, it really does look like the mist is forming over the mountains, and they really spend a lot of time on it. So I wanted to make sure that I did a good job representing it. Okay, here's the point where I start hitting some trouble. Because as soon as I decided to put a figure in my foreground, I realized that my background was really bright, and that my foreground looks exactly like my background. Yeah, so I tried all sorts of things to get it to come out. Here I'm finishing up on my last mountain, adding in some snow and some white highlights on top. So altogether there's probably like 6 values in here. In a speed painting, I wouldn't do much more than that. Otherwise, you're going to get, like, too much information, and it's just going to look cluttered. And here I'm trying to figure out the foreground. Like, how do I make this look like it's not in the mountain? And So, I tried really hard, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to put the horse up here. Shadow mirror. Which I found out was a dude. I thought it was a girl in Oblivion. A girl horse. But apparently, in this one, it's a dude horse. And then I decided, oh, wait, I have a sketch already. I'm going to open up this file and copy that layer and put it there, and why redraw it, right? I mean, it's right there. And apparently my other download just finished and started to play. Wow. Sorry about that. Yeah, okay. That's good to know, so I can upload that to YouTube. Anyway, I'm drawing a horse, right? That's me checking up on a reference. I took my capture card, and I recorded the the characters I was using originally from all angles first before I even drew the sketches, but I had forgotten. There's a little Brotherhood handprint on there, and I adjust a few things because, you know, a sketch is a sketch and there's going to be mistakes, so. But I wanted to make sure I kept it gestural, and even in the horse, because I was afraid I'd get too worked up on the details because I love Shadowmere. So awesome, I just let him fight my fights. I'm just like, okay, I don't feel like fighting, get off my horse, you go fight. Here I add a little highlights here and there, which I ultimately discard. I drew this horse a lot bigger than it actually turns out to be, which sometimes is a good idea. You draw him bigger and then you make him smaller. It looks like you fit like a bunch of really small details in a really small area, when in actuality you drew it really big and then you made him really small. Kind of cheating. Whatever. Oh yeah, I decided to make him look like he was more like staring out into the distance. And I fixed his big fat chin and added some more shadow to make the light contrast coming in on him brighter, because I'm a big fan of highly contrasting light sources and shadows, because I feel like understanding light source is very important, and demonstrating that you know how to use the light source is also very important. So use it, abuse it, do it all the time if you want. That's my rule. Here I decided to add a big rock in the foreground to make the horse behind it seem smaller, or more like the vast scale of the place. So I ended up nixing these trees. This is one of my attempts to bring the foreground out, because I'm like, maybe if I add this big dark black thing in the front, and then I think I ultimately take out the trees because they're stupid. I mean, they probably could have worked, but I think what I ended up with was better. And then I was like, oh, highlights. I'm just gonna put snow everywhere, I think was my thought. Yep, there we go. Snow. Snow. Make it really bright so everybody has to look at their first snow. Yeah, so I put the white there to draw the viewer's eye to the horse first, because of the contrast between the really dark horse and the really bright snow brings your eye to the horse first, rather than the mountains. And I do believe I darkened the mountains too. And then I decided I wanted to add a figure, maybe like kneeling on the edge of the mountain, and I started to make it kind of roguey, and then I'm like, nah, here we go. I'm gonna make it the guy from the trailer with his very gestural, like I knew he was wearing hide and iron armor, so I just kind of like put a splash of peach in there and his horns and put some snow on him, like he's been sitting there for a while. Then I like, oh, I'll put some snow on Shadowmere, and then, oh, I'll make it snowing. And then I decided to go ahead and just add shadows to the backgrounds, because I felt like you couldn't see the figures. They weren't standing out as much as I wanted them to. So I just put that on a multiply layer and changed the opacity until I got what I wanted. And then did a little erasing. See, I switched it around. I put usually when I do speed painting, I'll put a big color layer on there, and I'll turn the opacity way down. That way it has some unification of color. So there's all blue hues, at least somewhere in the whole painting, which kind of brings the painting together sometimes. Here I just click multiply alt, multiply alt, multiply alt to bring in the shadows. That way I'm grabbing the same color palette and not changing it around too much. I added a shadow by the cliff to bring that out. More shadows to bring him out. I just wasn't satisfied with how. Then I added white, stark white. And then I realized it needed to be snowing, so I made a quick snow brush, making little dots, made a brush, and went snow, 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 snow. And then I erased the outside, came in with a little mist to make it look like it was snowing. I've only seen snow once, but I'm glad I've seen it once, so I know how it looks. And then I signed my name, tilt it around, add one more shadow to the bottom, and I believe after that, I'm done as soon as I finish screwing around.